Hey, good morning. So we're here with our new principal meeting. You guys have already talked to some of the other departments, our HR department, about some of the requirements as our new administrators or new principals. You've done the T-test calibration, the Fundamental 5 calibration. So I'm here today as new principals, as our secondary principals from our junior high and our high school. There's a couple of things that I'm going to be here to talk to you about today. So our agenda today is we're going to do a Title IX overview to give you guys an overview of just what Title IX is for our campus, so you kind of know your requirements. And then we're going to be talking about our district literacy initiative and give you an overview and just talk about your role in this. So we're going to start with our Title IX overview as new administrators on our campus to understand what your role is going to be and what we're doing here as a district. So Title IX, our federal definition of sexual harassment, is that it's a conduct on the basis of sex that is one or more of the following: the quid pro quo harassment by a district employee. The idea of quid pro quo, you do something for me, I'll do something for you. That's by a district employee, either to another employee or to a student. Having a hostile environment, and then also our Violence Against Women's Act of offenses. And so those are the three definitions that we use to determine sexual harassment, just so you're aware of those. As we go through, it has to happen for Title IX to be in effect for us. Just a reminder, it has to happen in an educational program or an activity. So the location, the event, or the circumstances is where the district exhibits substantial control over both the alleged harasser and the context in which the harassment occurred. So it's either at school, it could be a school-related activity, whether it be on or off campus. But if it's just something that happens off campus that has nothing to do with the school, then it's not Title IX under us. Okay, but that also might include, and this is what we need to make sure, it's cyber harassment if it's done on a district platform. So we have our one-to-one Chromebooks. If they're using the Chromebooks to do this, then we are liable and it would go through us. So just to kind of let you know the roles of who all is involved in this, as principals, don't have a huge role in Title IX, but we just want you to make sure you know what information and who to contact in case it gets presented to you. So I am the Title IX coordinator. So I am the one that any report will come to me. I'm the facilitator. I'm the one that's going to be, if we do have a report, I'm going to be the one doing all the paperwork. I'm going to be the one that does everything for it. So if it ever comes to your desk, the first person you're going to contact is me, and I'm going to take it over. So as a new principal, our principals on your campus, your role really is kind of limited with Title IX. You're just making sure that you get it to the right people. So that's going to be me. Our assistant coordinators and mainly our investigators are going to be our assistant principals. We make sure that our assistant principals, because they're the ones that usually investigate these kind of incidents anyways, so those are going to be the ones that I'm going to be working with in that aspect. Our decision makers, our appeal officers are mostly going to be those at the district level, where we have our assistant superintendent of curriculum, our assistant superintendent of special programs. They are involved in that, and then our superintendent is involved with the decision making, the appeals process. And our informal resolution facilitators, those are our counselors. This is only done if it's a student-to-student issue or if it is a faculty-to-faculty issue. But if you ever have a teacher or faculty member and student member, there are to be no informal resolution facilitators. They are not part of that. Just real quickly, kind of the process to let you guys know. When an allegation of sexual harassment comes in, it gets reported either to me as the district coordinator or the campus deputy title coordinator, those assistant principals. And they will then contact me immediately. So if something comes across your desk, you hear of something, a parent contacts you about this, your first response should be either going to your AP or coming to me. And then we will take it, we will handle it. What ends up happening is we have to make sure, this is kind of where you guys are rolling, is there's no disciplinary sanctions are put in place against the respondent until the process is complete. We have to make sure that we're not disciplining them for what they did. We have to go through our investigation process first. And that's why our APs handle it, because they handle all of that. And then what happens is the Title IX coordinator, whether it be me, whether it be the campus assistant there, they're going to determine if the information is provided meets those definitions that we just talked about, the quid pro quo, and those. If it does, we become a formal complaint, we'll start the process. If not, then I will dismiss it and I do all the paperwork. So just real quickly, the process through that goes through those people, and then those decisions are made. So it's kind of out of your hands. You just kind of need to make sure you understand to make sure you get it to us. Because if not, then you're going to be liable. I'm going to be liable. So we got to make sure that we're getting it into the right people. Just to kind of let you know, also FERPA. We talked about that. FERPA, protected information, actually may just be disclosed to both parties in the process and the team members that are a part of it. So those assistant principals, the investigators, the decision makers, the appeals person, those teams that we create actually are going to be able to look at that information even if it is in FERPA, just because we need to know it, and even the parties are going to get that information. FERPA protected information cannot be disclosed outside of the process. So as long as it's part of the process, we're good. And the investigation reports are not redacted for FERPA. So that's just a quick overview of Title IX for sexual harassment. As new principals, your role is just to make sure, because you will hear things. As principals, you're going to get the phone calls, because they're going to have to speak to the principal. A parent's going to when they call you. They're not going to know who to go to. All this information is on the website. We have everything posted like we're supposed to. But when something happens to somebody's child, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call you as the principal, because it's your responsibility on campus. So you need to know the first step you're going to do is say, I'm going to get this information to our Title IX coordinator, and they're going to contact you. And you give me the information, or you give your assistant principal the information, because they're the deputy coordinators on each campus. And then we will make contact as soon as possible, really kind of right away with the complainant, and then we start that role, and then you're kind of stepping away from it. So just make sure that you know that your role is just making sure you get it to us. So that's Title IX. The second part of what we're going to talk about today is our literacy program that we're starting here at Diboll ISD. We've gone through a process that we're going to start literacy. Really the first step of this is understanding why. Why are we doing this? Why are we starting a literacy plan? Why is it important? So we're going to watch a video real quick, because I feel like this video is going to explain to you better than I can in any ways the impact that this video has of understanding why we're going through this process. Let's see here, here we go.
Cancer, heart disease, diabetes. These are considered some of the most serious issues facing our planet today, and justifiably so. According to the International Agency on Cancer Research, over 8 million people are claimed each year due to cancer. The World Health Organization reports that heart disease, the leading cause of death worldwide annually, touches 17.3 million people each year. The WHO also reports that an estimated 422 million people worldwide, including myself, live with diabetes. Do you know what affliction affects an estimated 1 billion people across the globe? Approximately a seventh of the world's entire population? Illiteracy. That is not to undermine the importance of funding and research for these other afflictions. On the contrary, it's to highlight the seriousness and importance of illiteracy, and that if it was a health issue, would be deemed an epidemic. But unlike these other issues that currently do not have cures, illiteracy does. Illiteracy is not a social or societal or cultural defect. It's the lack of ability to read. It's a solvable problem. But what is illiteracy? How is it defined? There are many forms of literacy: computer literacy, health literacy, financial literacy, and others. For the sake of today's conversation, we're going to talk about what a bulk of the population thinks of when they hear the word illiteracy: the basic inability to understand or produce written information. Those of us that make our ways through life off of sight words, images, just being able to sign our name, those folks are functionally illiterate. And as vaccines help to eliminate and stop the spread of disease, literacy can help us eliminate and stop the spread of hunger, poverty, and crime. It is the tool necessary to break those harsh social cycles. The data is telling and troublesome. Students who exit 4th grade without being able to read proficiency have a 78% chance of not ever catching up. 90% of welfare recipients are either high school dropouts or illiterate. 85% of individuals that interface with the juvenile court system are either functionally illiterate or don't read with proficiency. No one factor can so drastically shape a person's chance of success, earning potential, health, and well-being while helping to break the cycle that leads to daily poverty and struggle, like literacy. There are countless examples of how literacy has impacted a life or changed a community, but I'm going to share one of the ones that I'm at least the most familiar with, my own. But first, a quick survey. And for some, the questions can feel personal, so if you choose not to participate, there's no judgment here. But how many of us, when we were growing up, were on some kind of government assistance, whether that was food stamps or Section 8 housing? How many of us came from a home of either single parent or divorce? How many of us, when we were in grade school, were on free or reduced lunch? The data tells us that about 82% of students that are eligible for free or reduced lunch don't read at proficiency at grade level. 3 out of 4 food stamp recipients perform at the lowest literacy levels. I had all of these factors in my childhood. In fact, I'm the least likely person to be standing before you today as an authority on literacy and education initiatives, seeing as how I barely graduated high school. And you may be like, whoa, T, wait a minute, I just heard your intro. You were the Texas Librarian of the Year. You have a master's degree. You frequently speak on children's literacy and literature. You're articulate and well-dressed and handsome. See how many will get in there. My journey begins not far from where you sit today, the booming metropolis of Lubbock, Texas. That is neither handsome nor well-dressed. Were we all that bad in the 90s, or were I just so off base? And what is with the suspenders and the belt? Where were my pants going that I was so concerned that I needed both? That's on a fade, thankfully. My mother, she grew up in a small farming community southwest of Lubbock called Meadow. She had a very stable upbringing. My grandfather ran the cotton gin there. She had stability, 3 square meals a day, a roof over her head. She graduated high school, but didn't finish college, ended up marrying my father and having me. I think trouble was always brewing under the surface, and when I was 7, my parents divorced and my father left. I didn't see or hear from my father from 1986 until his death in 2007. My mother, God rest her soul, she passed in 2014. She did the best she could, but with no higher education, it was difficult to be the breadwinner. So she was gone a lot, working, trying to keep a roof over her head and food on the table. But with no siblings, I was home alone a lot, and that's where my struggles began. My grades began to suffer. I was passable, barely more. I acted out, was the class clown, which after years of counseling, I know was just my way of trying to get attention. I spent a lot of time running with the wrong kind of crowd, doing things young men ought not do. Got a lot of detention in study hall. But for me, staying after school for detention and study hall was better than going home to an empty house. And detention and study hall happened to be in the school library. Now, I was an adequate reader, but it doesn't help your street cred to be seen carrying the newest Babysitter's Club or Goosebumps book. But the library was a safe, comfortable environment, and that's where my transformation began. I think we can all identify at least one teacher or educator that had a great impact on our lives. For me, one of those was the librarian at Bowie Elementary School in Lubbock, Texas, Miss Ray. Now, while all the other teachers were sending me to the office or putting me in a corner, not that I blame them because I was a pill, Miss Ray engaged me in a meaningful way. She told me about this award for books where the children of Texas got to vote on the winner. It was called the Texas Bluebonnet Award, and all you had to do to be eligible was read 5 of this list of 20 books, and that was it. For me, the idea that I could help decide what the best children's book in Texas was just by reading was magical. Just 5, of course I read all 20, I'm sitting in tutorials anyway, and while I'm sure Miss Ray would have preferred me to work on my schoolwork and improve my grades, I was transfixed by the idea of belonging to something, being a part of something. See, when I was reading, it didn't matter that I was on food stamps or that my father had abandoned me or that all my friends knew I was on free lunch at school. It changed me. It helped me to believe that my life had all the opportunity that I was willing to take advantage of. Now, I never did become a good student, and I did barely graduate high school, but because of Miss Ray, I had the foundational skill of reading that serves as a key to unlock upward mobility for life. I don't know where Miss Ray is now. I don't know where she is or what she's doing, and I've never been able to appropriately thank her, but I hope that my life in literacy is suitable thanks. Traditional education is important, but reading is the foundation upon which all other essential skills are built. I am an example of the transformative power that literacy can have on your life and help to break the harsh social cycles we sometimes find ourselves in. A third of all children born into poverty will stay there through adulthood, but because of Miss Ray and many others along the way that took an interest, I'm not a part of that statistic. All of this is why schools and libraries should be cathedrals, beacons of light on the highest hill, proclaiming to all that here is where you change your life. Here is where meaningful, impactful progress is made. Librarians and teachers should be lauded for the work they're doing, educating our children and trying to make the world a better place through education. The investment in the intellectual development of our children is not a nice to have, it's a must have. The ability to read is a fundamental human right. It's like access to clean drinking water or health care. Its impact is every day. 180 million children worldwide will never darken the door of a school, but if they can read, they stand a chance. A chance to make their lives better, a chance to make their family lives better, a chance to impact their communities or villages or cities. And when we're talking about impact, the greatest impact is a child's access to books. Children that have books at home is a greater indicator of future success than their parents' education level. Middle class income households, a child to book ratio is about 1 to 13. In low income areas, that changes, and the age appropriate book is 1 for every 300 children. So my challenge for all of us today is this. We need to get books into the hands of kids that will make a difference, will have an impact. The next time you're invited to a birthday party, instead of taking a toy that's going to break in a week, take a book. Stick a book in the stocking. Support your local literacy initiatives. Support your local public library. I envision a world where children have access at home to the same number of books if it's at least their age. If every 8-year-old had access to at least 8 books at home, and every 13-year-old had 13, and 17 had 17, can you imagine the impact that would have on that generation, and thereby future generations? The great Laura Bush. Oh my, that is a handsome, my lovely wife on the left, and then the legend, and Mrs. Bush is there as well. The great Mrs. Bush, who is a librarian by profession and a personal hero of mine, once said that children who read learn 2 things. First, that reading is worthwhile, but second, that they are worthwhile. Literacy is important. Literacy matters. Literacy can make a difference. Whatever the question, literacy is the answer. Thank you.
All right. Give me a second there to digest that. That's so powerful to me. We ask why, because this is what's going to come up. As principals, you as the leaders of your campus instructionally, you're going to be asked why. Why are we starting this program? Why are we looking at doing this? And I go back to this video. I just kind of want to take a second. What impacted you from that video?
To me, it's just so amazing how many students or how people who are on welfare or those who are in the prison system are illiterate, and how that has such a huge impact on your entire life.
And it does. And those are, and we saw those statistics about government assistance and all that. Those are our kids, guys. Those are the ones that you're walking into. Those are our students. Those are our families. They're the ones that, you know, we talked about those low income. The number that jumps out to me was when he uses the ratio of the books. That, you know, our middle class kids have books, our lower class don't, but those are most of our kids. And so that's why it's so important. When I hear those stats and I hear those numbers, it's such powerful words. Anything else that stood out? I think when he says literacy is the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing this. And so what you're gonna get questions, because I know when we start a literacy program, this is a big plan. This is something huge that we're rolling out this year. We're gonna talk here in a minute about how we came up with this. It wasn't a one-person decision. It's something that we've worked since May, putting this together. But it's gonna be a big thing for all our teachers, not just our ELA teachers. And y'all being, you two being at the middle school and the high school campus, you're going to have the teachers that we're gonna ask them for some things, and the students to do some different things. And so being that administrator, I know what ends up happening is those teachers start talking about, well, this is something that, you know, across the street at central office they want us to do. So we have to have the buy-in from everybody. And as the instructional leader on that campus, that video, everyone's gonna watch this video. When we get together before school, everyone's gonna have a chance to watch this video. And I think it's such an impactful video to understand why we're doing this and to relate it back to that. You know, our job as a school district, and we see that in our mission statement, is that we have to prepare our students for after what's coming, for after school, for after they get through our doors. And we heard that. He talked about those numbers of those that were deficient in reading and how much it takes to catch up. So that's the why, and that to me is such a powerful thing. A couple other things that we've used, we always want to use our data, our research. We've seen that schools that are focused on literacy and have done literacy plans, they've seen an increase in their ELA state assessment scores. You've seen our scores as you've walked in, you know that our ELA scores are lower than our math scores right now, or lower than our science, so we want to focus on ELA, and it's going to help that. But also an increase in literacy is going to be needed for all subjects and for students to succeed after high school. And that's something that I think that we tend to forget, that we're going to focus a lot on our ELA classrooms, our English classrooms are going to be the big focus. But this is this is a program that's going to affect everybody on our campus. Our social studies, our science teachers, all of them are going to be doing this as well. And we need to make sure that they understand why it's important for their class. Because when you walk into, I know the science teachers, why do I need to teach reading? And they're not teaching reading, but they are literacy teachers now. We are going to build a culture where we are all literacy teachers. And so with that in mind, this is what we want to show for why it's important that we need to know it for everything. This is the Lexile measure of the average Lexile scores for these different areas. And you can see high school literature, your English books, is one of your lowest Lexile scores. You don't have to have a high Lexile score to understand your ELA textbook. But look how it jumps. College literature, actually high school textbooks. When you talk about your physics books, when you're talking about those higher level books, your high school textbooks actually have a higher Lexile score that you need to have to understand it and comprehend it more than your actual high school literature and your college literature. And then it goes up to military. So we talk about getting them out prepared, getting them prepared for the real world. If we have kids going into military, which we do have several that go to military, we need to make sure that they're reading at the appropriate level, that they're going to be successful. Personal use is even higher. And then to me, the big one is that entry-level jobs. Look, that's the highest one. Our entry-level jobs that we're getting our students prepared for have to be at a high reading level than even them doing what they need to do in their English class. And so that's why this is so important. And that's what teachers need to understand when they walk into that social studies room, when they walk into that science room, when they walk into their CTE class. What's so important is going to be that we're preparing them for the future. Our mission statement, again, I bring that back, is it's what drives what we do. It's we're preparing our kids for the 21st century. And our entry-level job for the 21st century is forcing them to have to read at that high level. And so this is what this program's for. So when you have that science teacher that walks into your office and says, why am I doing this? Why am I a literacy teacher? Remind them of this chart. They're all gonna get this. They're all gonna see it. This is a great reminder of why we're doing it, because they need to be at those levels. And so they're not just helping the ELA teachers out, they're not gonna help their ELA scores, but they're also gonna help their students and their subject and their students preparing for the future. So, our literacy plan, a few things. It was developed by our curriculum staff, our special service director, and our elementary principal and our junior high principal who left. and then also an ELA teacher from each campus. Unfortunately, at the junior high, that ELA teacher has also left. And so there's gonna be some transition period. There's some people that were a part of it that aren't here anymore. So we're gonna have to have a little more buy-in from some of the other areas that we weren't ready to have to do. So that's why we're talking about this now. And then we're gonna bring those teachers in. We developed this plan through a 2-day training through ASCD. They did a wonderful, intense training. Then which, as the committee, we were able to sit there and basically, as they were talking to us and showing us, do a step-by-step process in developing our plan. And so this was something that we just didn't come up with on our own. We just didn't just say, hey, let's just do this, but we had some direction from ASCD who has done this training. They're the ones that we talked about with the literacy, that they've done it for others, that we saw their increased scores, and so we were able to go through that training. So we've developed a 5-year plan. There's gonna be about 2 to 3 new reading strategies that we're gonna introduce every year. That's gonna be cross-curricular, not just English, but it's things that every subject at every grade level can do. And that's something that we made sure, when we met as a curriculum staff, when we met as this, we made sure all those ELA teachers said, yes, we can do that at every grade level. Administrators and our curriculum people said, yes, we can do that at every subject. To make sure that it was something that you don't have to be an ELA teacher to understand how to read or how to process with literacy. May 10th, August 10th, we have our literacy day. We're gonna have our professional development for all teachers. We're gonna have our English teachers are gonna go one area, our core teachers are gonna do something else, but we've got all day planned for them to kind of introduce our plan, and not just introduce it, because it's gonna be kind of a mind-blowing thing for some of them, but then give them the steps that they're gonna need to be effective. And then we're gonna do a lot of follow-up. So we've got some book studies for our different groups, different books for different subjects, different grade levels, that we're gonna be implementing as the year goes on. We thought about throwing this out at them at the summer, but we didn't wanna give them something and just say, read this, but not have questions because they're gonna have questions, and we wanna make sure we're there. So on this day, they're gonna get their book, and we're gonna have a schedule of book studies that we're gonna do during our data meetings, and we'll have professional development as we go through the year. So the idea is that this is a 5-year program. You know, we're baby steps. This is gonna be our first year of implementation. We know that in the first year, you're always going to have little struggles. And so this is gonna be a 5-year plan. This isn't something that we're gonna come in this year and say we're done with. We're gonna adapt it as we need to, but it is a 5-year plan that we're doing for the district. The 3 things that we wanna make sure that we're doing in the program is we're gonna establish an independent reading program in all our ELA classrooms. We heard in the TED talk about the importance of just reading and getting books into their hands. And that's gonna be what our ELA classrooms are gonna be doing. We're gonna incorporate more reading opportunities and reading strategies across curriculum in every subject. And with that comes that we're gonna develop a district culture of reading. That's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a culture, not just in one grade, not just on one campus, but it's the district. And that becomes because we wanna make sure that we have this alignment. You know, we have here, without alignment, student and community demographics will continue to be the largest predicators of student test results. If we're not aligned with what we're doing, then all of a sudden, we're continuing to have to go back and redo. And that goes into, we need to have consistency and coherency. And that's where you guys, I mean, as secondary principals, we need to make sure that our students are going from middle school to high school, that there's still that consistency, that they know what to expect. It's a 5-year program. So when your kids, you're getting 6th graders, they're still gonna be doing this when they're in 10th grade. And so we wanna make sure they're consistent in what they're doing. So we need to make sure we have a consistent learning environment that allows them to thrive academically, give them that time and space, and then that's what we're doing. And we need to make sure it's coherent learning environments that are motivating the students to learn because it's aligned, it's connected, it's built upon. Every year we're gonna build upon what we're doing next. So even when they go from 8th grade to 9th grade, we know that they're changing campuses, but the program is staying the same. And that's so important to have. So our vision, as a committee, this is our vision, is we are committed to ensure that every student is provided with academically rigorous and culturally relevant literacy instruction that prepares them to be an analytical reader, skillful writer, innovative thinker, leader, and accomplished communicator for success in school, college, career, and life. That vision really kind of ties into our district vision of preparing them for not just school or college, but also what they're doing after that in their career and their life. We want to make sure that they just aren't just analytical readers, but then they can write about what they've read. And we talked about that with our Fundamental 5, that writing, it plays right in with that. And then we wanna have innovative thinkers and leaders. We want to, hopefully, by doing this, we're getting kids to be able to think more. We're getting kids that are able to be able to then basically make their own decisions, basically think for themselves, and that's what we need to do through this. I know there's a lot of beliefs, we're not gonna go through each one of them, and just understand that we do have these set beliefs. Every teacher's gonna have this, we're gonna have posters of these, we're gonna have, this is going to be what we need to make sure. We heard him say this, literacy is a fundamental lifelong right that unlocks the possibility for every child. It's a right that they get it, and we gotta make sure that we're providing it for them. We're gonna make sure that every teacher is a literacy teacher, we talked about that. They don't have to be a reading teacher, but they have to understand the importance of the literacy part of it. It needs to be purposeful and relevant. That just goes in with anything that we do, right? That goes into our teaching. If the kids don't see any relevance into it, they're not gonna do it. Our teachers aren't gonna do it if they don't see the purpose of why it's important to do it, okay? We'll talk a lot about students should have that to do self-select materials. As campus administrators, I'm telling you, this is the one that you're gonna struggle with your teachers, with your ELA teachers. Because your ELA teachers, you know that they like to do those book studies. You know that they want those kids to read those books that they liked when they were, coming through school. I was like that when I was an ELA teacher. I love The Giver. I think everyone should read The Giver. But I get that you're gonna give it to a class of 20, you might have 5 of them that are actually interested in what you're doing. Okay, so we're going to have to make sure that they're gonna have to be okay with, hey, there's gonna be some books, you have to let kids self-select what they're reading. Because if you do that, then you get the relevance, because they're going to want to connect to those books. I have the librarians, both your librarians are so on board with this, because they're excited and they have some programs available to find what kids like, and then to reach them on different levels as they continue reading. Okay, and then we have to have authentic opportunities to read. And that's something that we're going to come together during our professional development and develop some of those, so the teachers have some say in what those opportunities are gonna look like, how we're going to present this. So, we talked about culture. We have to build a culture of reading. Donna Lynn Miller here, the Book Whisperer, which is what we've based a lot of our ELA classroom is gonna look like. She's in her book, she talks about, we have created a culture of reading poverty in which a vicious cycle of illiteracy has the potential to develop into illiteracy for many students. By allowing students to pass through our classrooms without learning to love reading, we are creating adults who then become parents and teachers who don't read much. And I think as educators, it's hard for us because I think we all came up reading. We all, but we still do have some that don't, but for the most part, we're all avid readers. I came from a very avid reading family. My parents were avid readers. One was an educator, one wasn't, but both of them were such avid readers that it felt to me, and I felt like that. We were read to, and then I do it now with my kids. We read to them every night. We're reading books to them, and they then get to read books. But we know that it's not like that in every family, and especially with our kids. And so we have to build that culture. And that's where, as administrators, you guys are gonna come in, because you need to help us build that culture of reading. And I think what she says, and I love it, and she'll love it, she says, love reading. We wanna build that culture of a love of reading. And it's hard to do, because when kids read a book, it's either they're doing it for an assignment, they have to do it for a grade, and that's not a love of reading. So we're gonna be changing that around with what we're doing. So, with that, creating that culture of literacy, we have to, as educators, administration, our board, community members, we are critical to the creation of that culture of literacy. As leaders of your campus, you're gonna be the one that's leading this culture. And we need to make sure it's that consistency that we're seeing it at every level. Because if our elementary school is doing it, but then they get to junior high and they're not doing it, but then they're doing it in high school, we've lost them for 3 years. So we need to make sure that culture is being built. Positive engagement with students is one of the first things we want to see. Talk to your students about what they're reading. Your students are going to be independently having a book at all times. When you see Johnny in the hallway, ask him what he's been reading. What is it? We've seen that the kids will want to tell you. Especially if they like what they're reading, they're gonna tell you about it. And then you go, hey, I wanna get that book, where can I find that book? I'm gonna talk to Ms. Smith in the library about finding that book for me. Build that up, okay? We're gonna support this is where, as administrators, you guys come in. Support the initiative by working with staff members. That's where I come in, our curriculum staff comes in, but you as the campus leader, because you're gonna see them every day. Make sure that we're working with staff members, being positive by supporting what we're doing, okay? This is a big one, our staff, and we're trying to tell our staff, promote what the staff is reading. If our students know that my teacher's reading a certain book, then it's gonna say, hey, they're reading, I wanna read. And then have those discussions with them about what you're reading. And have those, hey, oh, I like that book. What is it you're reading? Let me tell you what I'm reading. We're gonna have posters. Every teacher's gonna have a kind of a poster that they're gonna basically be able to tape a book cover of what they're reading. We want every teacher to have a book cover up, and we're gonna ask our teachers, I know time's limited, but try to read something every 4 weeks. Change it out. Have something new. And so then the students are seeing, hell, you're reading that book, I read that book before, and make those connections, okay? And we're gonna find ways to celebrate students and faculties in reading, and both of them, because it's a campus culture, it's a district culture. One of the things that we're gonna be talking about, and something to start thinking about, that when we meet with your campuses after we go through all these trainings, is we're gonna find ways that we can celebrate. You know, we've got some ideas, we've got some things of whether it be how many books you've read or how many pages you read, you might get put that name put in a drawing. But that's something that as administrators, you're gonna decide what you want is best for your campus, for your staff, for your students. So be thinking about that. So in our ELA classroom, so there's two things that we're gonna be looking at. We're gonna be looking at one real quickly. I want you to know what your ELA classroom needs to be looking like, and then I want you to know what your other core classes are gonna look like. So in our literate classrooms, we need to make sure that we're reading and writing, we're modeling. Our ELA teachers are going to model it. We need to increase the volume of the reading. We need to have access to books. We model it. We have to have feedback. We have to have authentic activity. So in the ELA classroom, we're basing this off of Domino Lynn Miller's Book Whisperer. She's gonna come talk to us actually. Part of our professional development on that August 10th is she's gonna meet with ELA teachers in the morning. And she's gonna talk about it. She's gonna talk about how she did it. And they're all gonna get copies of the book. That's gonna be their book study. And so she's gonna be there to discuss it and to talk about what worked for her. And then we're gonna meet with the teachers afterwards with her and talk about how it's gonna work for us. Building classroom libraries, we have to have classroom libraries so kids have access to books. And at secondaries, just to let you all know, is we have gotten a great start on it. For high school, we were able to order 5,000 books through our new adoption for textbooks last year. You get the points through the company, and we were able to order 5,000 books. I think about 1,500 of those are all different titles, and we have multiple copies. So we're going to be able to build a classroom library in every ELA class, and hopefully our social studies classes, because we have books for social studies and science to start with. We're hoping in the next 2-3 years, we're gonna budget some money out, and we will have a classroom library for every class, no matter what the subject is. At junior high, we ordered 500 books to start us out with, and our librarian is gonna order another 500 more once we get the new budget rolled out. And that's gonna get us started with for ELA classes, and then again, we're hoping in the next 4 years that every classroom in our district will have their own classroom library. We will update it every year. We're developing a process so those teachers can check books out easily. QR code, they take their phone, they can just scan it, or their Chromebook, they can just scan it. It's gonna be a Google Doc that tells you what kid has what book. We're gonna promote independent reading with students being able to self-select books. I told you guys this is gonna be your toughest task. To me, this is one of your toughest tasks with your ELA teachers, is they're going to struggle with, I wanna teach this book. Because that's what they've always done. They've always taught a certain book. And they do a novel study for 6 weeks. They gotta be okay with letting go. They've gotta be okay with saying, I don't mind what you read. And there's gonna be some kids that we know are going to pick a low level book to start with. I always bring up with my junior high teachers, we had that discussion with our junior high teacher that was on the committee. And we said, you know, there's gonna be a chance that you're gonna get a 6th grader that's gonna pick Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You know, it's a graphic novel, we get it. It's not a book probably at 6th grade that they should be above that, but we have kids that are gonna be at that level, and that's fine if that's what they're interested in. Now, for our teachers and our librarians, and our librarians are so excited about this, is that they're gonna be the ones that are gonna say, okay, that's the kind of book you like after you read the first one. We're gonna find one at a little bit higher level that has that same interest, and we're gonna continue to build and build. And we're gonna see, again, it's not gonna be a one-day project. It's not gonna be something that's gonna happen over a year. But hopefully through this span of as we're going through the district, we're gonna see that increase, okay? So that's where we have those ELA teachers. That goes into this next bullet point. Our ELA teachers, they're gonna be supporting our students' reading interest. We have a reading interest page that they're gonna fill out day 1. And And we're gonna get a copy for the teacher, a copy for the librarian, a copy for me, because I'm gonna be a part of this. I'm gonna look at these books and say, hey, this kid might be interested in something. We're all gonna be a part of it. If it's something you wanna be a part of as the instructional leader, we're gonna get copies to you as well. So everyone's gonna be helping. So if we see that Johnny likes hunting books, I may not know great hunting novels, but you may like hunting, and we may have somebody in the district who knows that and knows what kind of novels are gonna interest that student. Okay, gone are the old ways of how we read and then how we test. We have used AR tests here for several years, and we can't go with that anymore. All AR tests do is just test if the kid read the book, but it doesn't tell us if they truly understood what they've read. And we found about that students are actually not even reading the books anymore, that they're getting the answers to somebody else. They're actually picking lower books so they can do easier on the test. And we wanted these kids, but it's not fun for them. And so we're getting away from that. So that's something as a staff that you're going to be working with your staff, and I'm going to be there too, developing ideas. We have things like we can talk about book talks where the students are going to talk about what they've read in front of the class. And it's one of those things that we have to decide as a campus how many times that's going to happen. We have to decide as a campus how many times they're going to do journal writing, because we want them to write about what they've read, how many times that's going to be implemented. But we do need to have kids make sure that they're reading, because we have to have something to hold them accountable for, but it can't be the AR test. It can't be something that's low level, low rigor. Okay, and that's where those authentic engagement activities come from that we're going to be talking about as a group. Real quickly, I'm not going to go into this. This is a model schedule. We're going to meet with teachers and we're going to meet with you guys to kind of decide how we want a schedule to look like. These are just a couple of examples of, at junior high, you guys are going to be block scheduling for ELA. So we know there's more time to do things, something like a new book commercial where the kids are introduced to their books at the beginning of class. Or one thing that we will have, and we haven't discussed yet, but we are going to build a schedule of them in the day that they have to have independent reading time, that they can read their book. It doesn't do any good to give you a book and say, I'm not going to let you have time to read it. We've got to promote that culture. So in our ELA classes for junior high and for high school, we have you built in. You're going to build in time in your schedule to read. Okay, it's going to be independent reading, and during that time, the teacher's going to conference with students about what they've been reading. So the teacher's kind of getting that quick assessment of what's going on. The teacher's not going to hit every kid in the day, but by the end of the week, the teacher should have talked to every student in that classroom about what they've been reading. So, our ELA teachers, the ones I've talked to, the ones that were on committees, they're excited about this. They are, because it's reading. They're so pumped about bringing the novels in the classroom, about kids reading, about promoting reading. Our non-ELA classes, they're going to be a little more difficult because they're going to understand. They're not, I'm not a reading teacher. I'm not a literacy teacher. And we understand that. So we're going to make sure we talked about why we're doing this. I think that video, I don't care what kind of teacher you are, after you watch that video of him talking, I think that you have goosebumps and anyone's going to be on board, reading teacher or not a reading teacher. But we need to make sure that they're understanding that they need to be doing some kind of reading in their classroom because it's going to help their class and it's going to help the student overall. And so what we're looking at is we're looking at these classes to be required to read content-specific documents, hopefully at least once a week. That's something that we're going to have to decide what we want to do time-wise. But our goal is eventually to get to once a week. And that's not just reading out your textbook, but that's bringing in other documentation to be able to build off of what you're doing. Newsela is going to be a great online source that we are purchasing as a district because it has science and social studies articles, it has CT articles that are designed for those classes. They're actually aligned to our Teach resource. And so if a teacher is doing if a 8th grade social studies teacher is doing the American Revolution, and that unit is in the Teach resource, they're going to go click on the link and it's going to show them all the articles that they can pull from for that unit that they're teaching right then. And then it also is aligned to the TEAC. So if they're looking for a specific TEAC, they can put that in and they can find an article that goes with it. We're really excited about Newsela. Our teachers that have used this, we had some teachers that used the free version during the shutdown, during our COVID time, and they loved it. And now that we're getting the paid version, the free version is maybe 1/8 of what the paid version has, and they're so excited. The teachers that we've shown it to during summer school, I showed my biology teacher this, and he was thrilled. He's like, look at all these articles that I can choose from that we can use and bring into the class. And it really gives the students a better understanding of their class when they're reading these things. Novels and books. Part of building the classroom library set is we're going to include content from other subjects. in the ordering the books that I ordered for the high school, I ordered a number of science books, a number of social history books, world history, US history, and those are gonna be there accessed in the classroom. And we're gonna be working with those teachers about doing those novels in those classrooms. And then we're gonna have reading strategies across content. So real quickly, we're gonna talk about those strategies. And these are what we're gonna be looking for. As you as an administrator, you're gonna be talking to your teachers about this. When we're in the classrooms, we're gonna be looking for these. So the 3 strategies that we're gonna do for the first year, and we're gonna add to these each year, is we're gonna do what's called 3 questions, what we call RACE, which is our quick write, and our hot rod. So real quickly, we're gonna talk about each one of these. And then we'll go, these are gonna be part of the big training on that August 10th that we're gonna go through with the teachers. But to give you an idea, our 3 questions is after our students have read something, no matter what class it is, any teacher can do this. What surprised me from what I've read? What questions do I have? And what changed, challenged, or confirmed my thinking? Those are the 3 questions that you ask the students, and now they're writing. Or you ask this question, and you ask your students, turn and talk. Now we're using our fundamental 5 and our components with that. And you can do that with any of these. You can have them write them, you can have them talk about it. You can have discussions about it. We can do this in an English class, a social studies class, math class, science, it doesn't matter which class. And so it's a strategy that they should easily be able to use. What we call our RACE is gonna be our quick write, okay? And the reason we're implementing this is because after next year, our EOC, our STAR test, every subject is gonna have to do possibly a short response answer. So we need to start them practicing it. And so we call it RACE. They need to understand how to restate the question, how to answer, cite, explain. They have to understand that they need to make sure whatever the question is, we're restating it in our answer. So I know what we're answering. It also makes sure our students stay on topic. Our students that just start writing something, they might not answer the question, but if you restate the question, you know that you're on the right track in answering it. Make sure you answer it, cite it, make sure you say where in the text that you're getting the information from, and then explain what it means. Why is that your answer? And again, it's going to relate directly to our new STAR test, which is for every subject, is going to include short answer responses. And the last one that we're going to do year 1 is what we call our hot rod. Hand over text, respond on demand. Honestly, all it is after a student has read something, they need to be able to summarize what they've read. They need to be able to talk about it without looking back. It means that they were engaged in what they read. We need to make sure our students aren't just reading something and then I'm done, but they're truly understanding what they're reading. And that hot rod method is going to be able to allow them to do that, because it may be summarize what you read, it may be respond to a question from what you read, but we want to make sure that they're truly engaged in that reading from the very beginning. And so we're doing that, and kind of the term is hand over text, meaning that I'm not going to look at it. They can physically put it over or put it away, but they don't have to look at it. They can respond to whatever question you have to them. That meant that they're showing that depth. We talk about rigor, that's high rigor right there, being able to summarize and explain something that you've read. So those are the 3 strategies we're going to look for in every classroom. This is going to be on our Fundamental 5 document. You guys went through your Fundamental 5 training earlier today, so you understand that sheet that you guys have to fill out. We're going to add this to it. So this is going to be down at the bottom of your instructional practices. We'll have these 3 practices so if you see it in class, you're going to check it off. So we kind of talked about this real quickly, but again, we're going to have plenty of professional development for our teachers that you guys are going to help be involved in. Donald and Miller, we talked about, is going to speak with our ELA teachers. We have our K through 3 ELA teachers. We have a reading professional development for them. Jamie Smith, who helped do our training for this and helped us develop our plan from ASCD. She's going to come in with our science and math curriculum people, and they're going to be working with our content area teachers in implementing strategies. We have Newsela is going to be presenting that day to them, show them how to use Newsela, because I know teachers are going to be real hesitant to begin with that you're throwing this out. So we're making sure that these trainings give them the resources and how to use them. And then we're going to be doing our ongoing book study and professional development throughout the year. As far as administrators, the biggest thing is making sure we're building that culture to understand why we're doing this. If we have to show that video multiple times, send it out to a link. I think that video was so powerful in making sure that they understood why we're doing this, and then this is the process of how we're going to do it. So we're excited for this. We are excited for where we're going. I think it's going to benefit our students. I think it's gonna make sure that we meet our mission of what we want for our district and prepare our students for the future and getting them where they need to be higher level thinkers, higher level readers and writers, and it's only gonna benefit them for the future. So we're excited to have you guys here as administrators on our campuses. I know there's a lot of work to get done, and you guys gone through a lot of training today to get ready to start on your new campuses. So any kind of questions that you have when we're introducing these topics, please come to me. Anything about Title IX, anything about the reading initiative that we're gonna implement, let me know. Email me, give me a call. You got my cell number, text me. Let me know if you've got any questions, because we're excited to get this thing started. Thank you.